My name is Finest Chingoma. I'm representing the Malawi team, but also this beautiful table. We have about 2 questions. First one is, as development cooperation, how do we make sure we're not part of the problem? We may be institutionalizing a non-functional system. And the second part is, on the back of decolonizing, how do we go back to what was there before, which was positive, functioning structures and system? What were the key levers of change back then? Thank you.
Hello, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Yasmin. I work at Headquarters, Sector Project Resilient Rural Areas. And we were discussing here on our table the theory of functionality. And we were wondering, what could our role in development cooperation be in that theory? Because there's so much out of control in the sense of if governments don't want to take the responsibility, but what could be the role of partners? Again, also if the constituency in the rural areas are not considered important, how can we incentivize it as development cooperation without stepping into any national affairs?
Thank you. My question goes to Madam. In your introduction, you said you are 60 and now you can say whatever you want to say without missing any words. But, I mean, for the youth, should we also wait to be 60 before we begin to demand what is rightfully ours? Looking at the fact that, I mean, in Africa, power is in the hands of our grandfathers and uncles. So what would you advise we, the youth, to do now to be able to change the situation? Thank you.
I can start. I had a lot of functionality, so I'll leave it to my sister. How can the development partners not be part of the problem? I think it came from that table. First is to refuse to be part of the problem. That's number one. Is to realize that the problems that we face in the continent are not new. And also the problems we face have been researched, I mean, for many decades. There's so much evidence out there that tells us what we need to do. But unfortunately, I think the development partners have been in competition. It's called the development industry for a reason. We have turned it into an industry which I think we are trying to serve poor people, we are trying to serve hungry people, and I don't think it should be an industry. We should introspect and think about how our resources are being spent. I've always joked with colleagues to say Africa has become one of the biggest laboratory in the world, where we try different things, we don't sustain them, there are things that work, the issue of scaling them is not there, we confuse the people in the rural areas. There's one solution here today, somebody else comes with another solution. When it is working, the project ends, we come again with another solution, and you find that we don't really solve the problem. So the first thing is not to be part of the problem. And as my sister Kawala said, that there is need for coordination. Despite the geopolitics that is there, we need to change lives. But we know our countries have differences. So if we can find a way to deal with the geopolitics in development, then we can begin to serve the communities we can serve the communities that we are trying to serve much more effectively and efficiently. And we also need to work with the governments to make sure that we put them in check. I mean, if they are not doing well, we need to say it. I mean, I know there's diplomacy, but if something is wrong, it's wrong, and we need to say it so that it can be sorted out. For the youth, You know, I've done a bit of research in terms of youth and employment in the agricultural sector. And one thing I found in Zambia is that we look at the agricultural sector as, we don't take a look at it as a value chain. When somebody's saying agriculture, people are thinking of primary production. And the primary production is hard. So you find that the youth are running away from drudgery, they are running away from low productivity, they are running away from it. It's because we have equated the agricultural sector as primary agriculture. But agriculture is a whole set. That's why I think the use of food systems is better. That for us to be able to generate jobs, we need to take it as a whole system. We need to look at that stage that is constraining the system to be able to make it work so that we can be able to get jobs along the whole value chain. The youth, I think, as I indicated in my presentation, is that vocational training, when I was growing up, I know my sister bragged that she's 60, I'm over 50, so I can say what I want, and I don't care what people think. Right? So vocational training, when I was growing up, was very important. And I can see those that were trained then are surviving because they were using their hands. Builders, those craftsmen, electricians, plumbers. It's not about being on social media. Not everyone can earn a living on social media. Not everyone can earn a good living trying to be on your phone half the time. So it's important, I think, to go back to the basics and be able to create jobs that are long-lasting, create jobs that will be able to build our countries. Last but not least, I think is the rural-urban divide. If you look carefully or seriously about some of the programs that we do, we say we are doing things for the rural areas, but we don't involve them. And we are creating a huge gap between the urban youth and the rural youth. And it is important to start thinking about how we close that gap. Because if we introduce programs that only the urban youth can participate in, then we are losing it. That gap that we are creating by doing certain programs in our communities, I think we need to think about the rural youth, because there is a lot that we can do there. We can create businesses in the rural areas, and those businesses, if they are run by the youth, they can be able to employ their fellow youth. I think I'll stop there and pass it on to my sister, Walla.
Thank you, Anthony. I agree with all of the points. I'll just go to the question, what is the role of development partners in functionality? And I would say number one, first role is to integrate functionality as a key pillar of your work. Whatever you are working on, it is important to do the functionality analysis with your partners and determine where, in my opinion, every development program, and that's whether you're working on health, agriculture, infrastructure, energy, at the end, the functionality of the architects should be strengthened. Best if the functionality of government is strengthened, and this can mean, government does not only mean the national executive. I think that also we have a tendency to think only about the national executive when we say government. Government can mean the local government. Government can mean the legislature. In some countries, we have parliamentary committees that can play a significant role. Government can mean the judiciary. It can mean the Supreme Audit institutions. So find the architect that makes sense for your program, identify them, map them out, and integrate functionality as a key aspect. Functionality of civil society and private sector is also very important. We are always telling government, include private sector, include civil society. But the reality is that civil society is not so functional itself, right? And so sometimes they are not prepared to go into a negotiation with government. They are not prepared to go into a discussion with the other actors. I know that we've been strengthening farmers' organizations for many, many years in development cooperation, but there is still a huge amount of work to strengthen farmers' organizations to become political. Functionality is political work. So this is not about them going into partisan politics, not at all, but it is them understanding the political framework within which they are navigating and being able to have the skills, the power. I told you all I was a local elected official for a good number of years, about 12 years. And one of the greatest things I feel as an accomplishment was that I worked with a market women's association and strengthened their ability to negotiate with the local government as an eye-level actor. And these women got so strong that they could demand to see the mayor, demand on certain issues to be put onto the local government agenda with concern their market. So we have that too is functionality, because the stronger the other architects are, the more they can demand for accountability, make their voices heard in the platforms that are there. The other element I will say as development actors is that the helping government to do its functionality analysis is a great step forward in functionality. Anthony and I were talking during the break, and we were saying, both agreeing that the conversation about functionality in most of our high-level government spheres is not taking place. So enabling people, and I mentioned P4C earlier, and a few people were in the workshop that we organized on Sunday. We have tried to develop some tools that can help in bringing this conversation to the forefront, in helping you work with partners to be able to put these issues, frankly, on the table. So there's a big, huge gap between where you are now and the level at which it becomes difficult for you to do work on functionality. There's a lot you can do in that gap right now.
Thank you to you both. Nous allons prendre un dernier round de questions. Je vois déjà des mains qui se lèvent. Mais je vais d'abord inviter Pala à... Je crois qu'il y a d'autres questions. On va commencer par cette table-ci.
No, I just thought it would be well, we're going to take questions anyway, but it would be interesting to hear from this table just what your thoughts are. I know we had a couple of questions and nobody's really responding to those, but just your response on maybe the second question, for instance.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. I think in answering especially the second question, why don't we achieve what we need to achieve? I think we discussed around one example in Zambia. Apparently everyone on the table here is from Zambia for now, including Marco.
Yes.
Yeah, so we took the liberty to discuss around a program, a very well-known program in Zambia called FISIP. And when you look at the policy documents of FISIP, it's a very well articulated document, very forward-looking. People were meant to be recruited into FISIP and be supported for 3 years, and then they graduate. But that has never happened. Instead, what has been happening is people have stayed on for forever, I would say, and more people who do not qualify have been recruited into that. So why is it that we cannot do what we say we want to do? And I think it's common knowledge in Zambia we have very brilliant policies. If only we could do even 20% of what we say we want to do, I think we can achieve a lot. So why don't we do that? So we came up with a number of reasons, which I'll, please be mindful that they are from the group and not necessarily from me. The first one we said it's because there are no consequences for non-compliance. You know, people in positions of authority will do what they want and simply walk away. There's no consequence. The rules say this, you have done otherwise. Therefore, how will you be punished? There's no such cycle to come back. And then the other reason we advanced is there is, I don't know if to use political interference.
Yes.
Yeah.
We understand.
Because people now want numbers, so they continue recruiting. Even those who are not supposed to be on the program come, and they cannot stand telling people to now move away from the program because they've had their 3 years. It's all for political expedience. I think those are some of the things that we discussed around that second question. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mapani. We just thought to hear from that table. And back to you, Alice.
On va commencer avec la table des francophones, pour qu'ils ne se sentent pas trop exclus. Et puis, nous allons encore prendre 2 tables. Nous excusons, ce sera un peu court. Tout le monde n'aura pas l'occasion de poser des questions, donc nous nous excusons d'avance. And we would like to invite our speakers to make short statements so that we can move to our other point. Thank you. Yes, we may start here.
Merci beaucoup pour la présentation qui nous a beaucoup inspirés et qui nous renvoie beaucoup plus à des politiques ambitieuses, des politiques de rupture avec les pratiques actuelles. Mais cela sous-entend aussi des données fiables utilisables pour la conception de ces politiques. Lorsque le docteur présentait ses résultats, on se référait à des structures. On était aussi vers 2017. N'est-ce pas, non? Comment faire pour avoir des données consensuelles, fiables, à temps réel et accessibles à tous? Car à parler de la collectivité à la base, c'est le premier niveau certainement de planification. Mais où sont les données? Où sont les données pour faire une planification locale juste, équitable et ambitieuse? Qu'est-ce que vous nous conseillez? C'est un chaos, c'est un problème. Qu'est-ce qu'on fait? Merci.
Merci. Ici, on va prendre cette autre... Oh, yes, you were the one. On va prendre votre table et puis nous allons prendre celle-ci et cette dernière. Ce sera tout pour les questions. Merci.
Merci beaucoup. Je suis Hasna de Madagascar. Je vais poser une question parce que l'une des questions a été déjà répondue tout à l'heure. Quelles sont donc les actions à prendre, puisque vous avez cité tout à l'heure par rapport à une bonne coordination et synergie? Quelles sont donc les actions, les cadres ou les approches qu'on devrait mettre en place pour une bonne synergie entre les partenaires techniques et financiers, étant donné que nous savons que chaque pays a ses intérêts, ses politiques, ses stratégies d'intervention, et comment concilier tout ça avec les besoins de chaque pays. Merci.
We believe that we have very elaborate policies in all our African countries. And Dr. Mopani, thank you very much for emphasizing that. But now the question here is, how do we tackle character and commitment issues in political leadership? And I say that this comes from both the development partners' side and as well as our African leaders. Thank you.
Good afternoon, and thank you once more for wonderful presentations. Nenad Gozdanovic, GSZ Ethiopia and Governance Project. So the question is about what you was mentioning, sustainability and the scaling up. And also in the same time you was mentioning issue about decentralization and putting that on the ground level. At the same time you was mentioning integrated functionality, etc., etc. So my point is, I think we need to, how to increase awareness of the government, maybe decision makers, of other relevant decision makers, to really start to think about sustainability, because I think that sustainability depends first from awareness that we want to really do something, and then we can think about sustainability, functionality, etc. Also, your point about integrated functionality and support from a donor organization, I partly agree with you in this statement. We, through different activities, pilots, pilot examples, development of studies, strategies, legislation, we are supporting this process. But I think that final functionality somehow it should be on the government to implement it. Thank you.
Je vais aller à la question des données fiables. Comment obtenir les données fiables? Je crois que aujourd'hui, la situation dans laquelle nous sommes, nous avons l'expertise dans la plupart de nos pays pour obtenir des données fiables, et nous avons la technologie qui est disponible. Ce qui manque, c'est encore cette approche fonctionnelle de dire, prenons la Zambie, il y a 10 régions. C'est comme dans mon pays, le Cameroun, il y a 10 régions. C'est de dire, nous allons partir région par région, et ça aussi c'est parfois difficile pour les politiques d'accepter qu'on ne va pas faire tout le pays en même temps et obtenir toutes les données partout, mais on peut, pour des raisons de la situation alimentaire, la situation de crise, la situation sur un certain nombre de données, de facteurs, on peut prendre une décision et dire, voilà, sur les 2 prochaines années, on va obtenir les données sur 4 régions sur les 10 que nous avons. Et on s'accorde avec l'expertise que nous avons en interne, avec l'expertise qu'on peut demander maintenant auprès des partenaires, avec l'expertise africaine. Aujourd'hui, nous avons énormément d'expertise africaine pour les pays qui ne veulent pas aller vers l'Occident ou bien au-delà du continent. Et ce qui manque, c'est mettre ces personnes autour d'une table, s'accorder avec eux par rapport à une méthodologie pour dire voilà la méthodologie qu'on va utiliser, voici la technologie qu'on va utiliser, et se donner des délais et obtenir ces résultats. Je ne pense pas, chaque fois qu'un bailleur met un peu d'argent sur la table, hop, on a les données, comme ça. Chaque fois qu'un bailleur dit venez faire une étude, Les gens qui réalisent les études de la GIZ, de la Banque mondiale, de tous ces partenaires, ce pas des étrangers. C'est nos instituts nationaux de statistiques qui réalisent la plupart de ces études-là. Donc nous avons la compétence, il faut un peu d'organisation de notre côté pour décider de le faire et le mettre en œuvre. La question aussi sur le cadre. Quels sont les cadres? Est-ce que j'ai bien compris? C'est le cadre avec les bailleurs, entre les bailleurs eux-mêmes. Alors, je vais rejoindre la question qui a été posée sur qu'est-ce que les partenaires techniques et financiers peuvent faire. Un, c'est de refuser de contribuer à la dysfonctionnalité. Aujourd'hui, vraiment, moi, je vous ai dit, 60 ans, c'est cash, il n'y a pas d'embellissement. Vous contribuez à la dysfonctionnalité. Chacun vient avec son pancart, avec son machin. Il vient souvent sans réaliser même une étude sur ce qui a déjà été fait. Certainement pas en faisant une vraie conversation avec le partenaire pour dire, mais attendez, vous collaborez dans l'agroécologie. Prenons l'agroécologie, notre nouveau terme sexy qui est à la mode. La conversation avec le partenaire, c'est avec combien de personnes est-ce que vous travaillez sur l'agroécologie? Dans quelle région? Qu'est-ce qui est déjà fait? Comment est-ce que nous ne dupliquons pas, mais nous bâtissons sur ce qui est déjà fait, nous faisons de la complémentarité. Voilà la conversation à avoir avec vos partenaires, même si vous n'avez pas coordonné avec tous les autres bailleurs. Et je suis d'accord, je vais alors, let me go to your question on that last point. I totally agree with you. I started the conversation by saying functionality is the job. It's our job as Africans. And that includes our government, but it also includes us as citizens. We also have to admit that we are where we are because as citizens, we let our governments get away with it. So this is our job as Africans. However, technical and financial partners should work with us on this. It means also, I gave the World Bank or IMF example. So Germany is doing GIZ and doing Friedrich Ebert Foundation and doing, different little cooperation projects. But Germany is also one of the biggest donors at the IMF. So our dysfunctional governments get blank checks from the IMF. This is the fact of the matter. They do not deliver, they misuse the money, they steal half of it, and they continue to write them checks. So if Germany wants to be coherent with itself, then it needs to get its finance minister to talk to its development, to talk to BMZ, and to talk to foreign ministry, and to say, okay, what are we actually doing in this country, and what makes sense? And when you don't, let me end on this point, when you don't, it is catastrophic for all of us. Why? Today, the youth, the African youth, are asking the 60-year-olds, why should we continue on this path of human rights and collaborating with the West and so on? What has it produced for us as results? We would rather go collaborate with China and Russia, where there's no talk about human rights, nobody is confused. We just go there and do that partnership. Now, personally, I think they are wrong, but what do I tell them? I don't have results to show them to say, oh no, by going this way, we have actually produced results. So I think you can no longer hide behind the excuse of it's the African governments which are not functional. You are also assisting them in dysfunctionality. So yes, we are the primary people responsible, but yes, you must also find new ways of working so that we actually get to functionality. Sorry.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me? Okay, good. Thank you so much. I'm trying to see if I can just add a few other points. First about FISIP, but let me try to contextualize it in African sense rather than just specific to Zambia. FISIP is a subsidy program, fertilizer subsidy program. It happens in Zimbabwe, Malawi, Tanzania, Cameroon, everywhere else. So basically, it's a program that is trying to assist smallholder farmers, one, to get out of poverty, two, to increase their product. I mean, first, let me do it right. First is to raise their productivity so that they can produce a little bit more for sale. That can help them in terms of their livelihoods. Because it's a subsidy, the way these subsidies are conceptualized is that it would be graduation. That, you help one today, maybe for 2 years, then these guys will become better off, and then you can help the next lot and next lot, and at the end of the day, you need to remove the subsidy because people would have gotten better off. Back to Zambia. FISIP, the Farmer Input Support Program. It used to be called Fertilizer Support Program. Mainly focused on one crop, maize. Born in 2001. I think it was supposed to be only a 5-year, 6-year program. A 3-year program. I think my director there is telling, hey, it's 3 years. But we are in 2025, 24 years down the road. That tells you something. Subsidies in Africa, or in most parts of the world, are very difficult to end. Once you start it, forget that it will end. I have learned the hard way as a researcher. I think maybe I can say 30% of my research is on FISIP in Zambia and on FRA, which is the maize buying strategic grain reserves. So I've spent most of my time on this. So I asked myself and say, what is really wrong? And I realized that as a researcher, I'm not addressing the political economy issues of subsidies. Because the politicians know that whatever they are giving these smallholder farmers doesn't work. And no one is going to graduate. People are just going to ask for more. But they don't have an alternative. And also, in my slide where I said short-term, immediate benefits versus long-term benefits. So, I've said probably we are not communicating right because they are not going to end. If we are putting $350 million every year, and I hear that African government says we don't have money, but you have $350 million that you put on one program. And I told you there that in Zambia, it's about maybe 60–70% of the agricultural budget. That means you're putting your eggs in one basket, which is not realistic. That's madness. Sorry, I mean, it's because we have a belief that this program will transform the agricultural sector. So we've said maybe it's the communication. Let's communicate better. All right? We have climate change hitting us. We have been promoting climate-smart agriculture. We are talking about resilience. Why don't we now start talking about how to make these subsidies more effective to resolve the problems? So we can go to our governments and ask, if you can take maybe 20% of this subsidy and put it on climate-smart agriculture. That would be much more palatable than going to the government and say, please end this program. Okay? So just think about it. Communication of these, I can see The moderator is so I'm trying to conclude on subsidies. Data, reliable data. There's lots of data in Africa, lots of it. I can cite here. Zambia is one of the best countries. I've worked here since 2001 because I was a student, and then I came to do all my research here. This country has a lot of data, but we have it in places that are not accessible. Every government in Africa has got a statistical agency that collects data on agriculture, on demographic things, social issues, the DHAs and all that. So data is there. So one issue is that we need to make it accessible. And also I challenge our universities and researchers to use this data to advise policymakers. The evidence that the quality, for me it's the quality of the evidence. It has to be timely, it has to be appropriate, it has to be communicated in the right manner. Last but not the least, I think I would love to end by saying our investment priorities in the continent are not proper. If we ask other people to pay for important services that will transform our economies, then we have gotten it wrong. The little that we have, we need to put it in the right sectors. And international partners or regional partners would only need to come to fill the void. And to me, we need to get that one right, the investment priorities. Because private sector investments are guided by what government spends its money. Here we have private sector that focuses on fertilizer and maize. Why? Because government spends most of its money on maize and fertilizer. So we need to really look at that, and also for the development partners, it is important to fill that void. We need to demand that whatever we are using need to complement what the government is doing. That's where I like the presentation that Kawala says, presence. Make sure that government is present before you put your money, because then the returns to investment would be much higher if government is present. Thank you.
Alice, I know you're going, yes. I know you're going to kill me. It's nice to sit here and be moderated for a change. But I just a point, because somebody mentioned character and commitment, and you mentioned political economy, but not from the character and commitment side of it. I think for me, it is about us pushing the conversation. We will not change anything from one day to the next, but it is about us pushing into these areas that we generally avoid, pretend like we don't see, pretend like it's not happening. Let's take rice. I'm looking at my friend Yaya, who he loves rice. So let's take rice. We will, in development cooperation, do a rice program, and then another rice program, and another rice program, and they are successful. We have success on the ground. We have success for 1,000 farmers, 10,000 farmers, maybe even 800,000 farmers. But the rice program does not get adopted and go to scale. And all of us are acting as if we don't know that the person who imports rice into the country is the president's brother or his sister or his wife or his cousin. And that is how he finances his political campaign. And so we can do all the rice programs that we like on the ground. We are going to keep importing rice. To me, the solution to that is, number one, acknowledge it. Speak with your partner and say, who is importing rice? And now that we're doing a rice program on the ground, what are we going to do about the import of rice? Maybe even the person importing rice can get to the table and find an interest in a rice program being scaled in the country. But what we know for sure is that putting our heads in the sand and acting as if we don't know that this is what is happening. It can be rice, it can be fertilizer, it can be, there are any number of products in our countries where this is happening, in all of our countries. So to me, what can we do? Push the conversation forward, get to open conversations about what is really happening, and find joint solutions. That's what I would say.